The alarm clock buzzed at exactly 5:30 a.m., just like every morning for the past 3 months. Hannah opened her eyes and stared at the gray ceiling of her tiny quarters aboard Kepler Station. Her crystalline blue skin, once bright with pride and achievement, now appeared dull and lifeless in the artificial light. She rolled out of bed and walked to the small mirror mounted on the wall. The reflection that stared back at her was someone she barely recognized anymore. Her large violet eyes, which once sparkled with curiosity and wonder, now held only shame and defeat. The intricate patterns that naturally formed on her forehead when she was excited about a new discovery had not appeared in months. Hannah was a Vorthan, a member of one of the most respected species in the galaxy. Her people were known for their brilliant analytical minds and perfect emotional control. They served as researchers, diplomats, and advisors throughout the 12 star systems of the Galactic Council. Vortons never lost their temper, never acted without careful thought, and never made mistakes that could harm others. Until Hannah did exactly that. She pulled on her waste management uniform, a drab brown jumpsuit that marked her as one of the station's lowest workers. The fabric felt rough against her skin, nothing like the smooth research robes she used to wear. Those robes now hung in her closet, untouched and gathering dust. She could not bring herself to throw them away, but she could not bear to look at them either. The corridors of Kepler Station were already bustling with activity as the day shift began. Scientists and researchers hurried past her, their arms full of data tablets and experimental equipment. None of them looked at her directly. Some pretended not to see her at all. Others whispered to their companions as she passed, their voices low but not quiet enough. "That's her," she heard Dr. Minho say to his assistant. "The one who destroyed those poor Kellians." "I heard she completely lost control during the experiment," the assistant replied. "Very un-Vorthan behavior." "She's what we call a lost cause now," Dr. Minho continued. "Some people just can't handle the pressure of real scientific work." Hannah kept walking, her head down, pretending she had not heard every word. But each comment felt like a knife cutting deeper into her already wounded spirit. The worst part was that she agreed with them. She was a lost cause. She had proven that 3 months ago when her experiment went so terribly wrong. The waste management sector was located in the lower levels of the station, far from the gleaming research laboratories where she used to work. The air here smelled of recycled oxygen and industrial cleaners. The walls were plain metal instead of the beautiful crystal panels that decorated the upper levels. This was where failures belonged. Hannah's supervisor, a grumpy Kellian named Bak, barely looked up when she arrived at her workstation. The Kellians were a practical species, focused on efficiency and results. They had little patience for what they saw as Vorthan emotional weakness. "Processor 7 is acting up again," Bak said without greeting her. "The readings are all over the place. Try not to break anything else while you fix it." The comment stung, but Hannah said nothing. She had learned not to defend herself anymore. Every time she tried to explain what had gone wrong with her research, people just saw it as making excuses. Better to stay silent and accept the punishment she deserved. She made her way to Processor 7, a massive machine that broke down organic waste from the station's various species. It was complex work that required understanding of different biological systems, but the other workers saw it as simple maintenance. They had no idea that fixing these machines required the same analytical skills she had once used to unlock the secrets of genetics. As she worked, her mind wandered back to better times. Just 6 months ago, she had been the youngest researcher ever accepted into the Council's elite xenobiology program. Her laboratory on the upper levels had been filled with the most advanced equipment in the galaxy. She had worked alongside the greatest minds of 12 different species, all focused on solving problems that could help billions of beings live better lives. Her specialty was genetic compatibility between species. Most aliens could not benefit from medical treatments designed for other races. A medicine that saved human lives might be poisonous to Kellians. A treatment that helped Vorthans think more clearly could damage the nervous systems of other species. Hannah had dedicated her life to solving this problem. Her research had been groundbreaking. She developed new ways to modify treatments so they could work safely across species barriers. Her papers were read throughout the galaxy. other scientists, requested her collaboration on their projects. The council had even considered her for the prestigious Galactic Science Award. Then came the project that destroyed everything. The Kellyan government had approached her with a special request. Their species was naturally strong and hard-working, but they struggled with complex problem-solving compared to races like the Vortons or humans. They wanted Hana to develop a treatment that could enhance their cognitive abilities without changing their basic nature. It was exactly the kind of challenge Hana lived for. She spent months developing a serum that could improve neural connections in Kellyan brains. Her computer models showed it would work perfectly. The early tests on cell cultures were promising. Everything indicated success. But when they tested it on volunteer subjects, everything went wrong. Instead of enhancing their thinking, the serum caused severe brain damage. The volunteers suffered seizures, memory loss, and personality changes. 3 of them never recovered. They spent the rest of their lives in medical care, their minds broken by her creation. The investigation that followed was swift and thorough. The council's review board found that Hana had rushed through safety protocols. She had been so excited about the potential benefits that she had not run enough preliminary tests. Her emotional investment in helping the Kellyans had clouded her scientific judgment. Reckless disregard for proper procedures, the official report stated. Dr. Hana showed dangerous lack of emotional control and scientific discipline. Her research privileges are permanently revoked. The other Vorthons were particularly harsh in their judgment. Emotional control was the foundation of their society. A Vorthon who let feelings override logic was considered fundamentally broken. Her own people saw her as a disgrace to their entire species. Now she spent her days maintaining waste processors, her brilliant mind reduced to fixing garbage machines. The work was not challenging, but it kept her busy enough to avoid thinking too much about what she had lost, most of the time. As the day shift ended, Hana cleaned her tools and prepared to leave. The night shift workers were arriving, including the humans who maintained the station's environmental systems. She had little contact with humans during her research days. They were considered useful but primitive by most galactic standards, good for manual labor and basic technical work, but not trusted with important scientific projects. Walking back to her quarters through the dimly lit corridors, Hana passed one of the human maintenance workers. He was tall with dark hair and kind eyes, carrying a toolbox and wearing the blue uniform of the engineering department. Unlike everyone else on the station, he looked directly at her and nodded politely. "Long day?" he asked in accented but clear galactic standard. Hana was so surprised by the friendly greeting that she almost stopped walking. No one had spoken to her casually in months. She managed a small nod in return before hurrying past, not trusting herself to speak without her voice breaking. Back in her quarters, she sat on her narrow bed and stared out the small porthole at the swirling colors of the gas giant terminus. Somewhere out there, 3 Kellyan families were dealing with the consequences of her failure. 3 lives destroyed because she had been too proud and too eager to help. Tomorrow would be another day of whispered comments, avoided glances, and routine maintenance work. Another day of being reminded that she was a lost cause who had thrown away everything that mattered. But for just a moment, she remembered the human worker who had looked at her like she was still a person worth acknowledging. It was such a small thing, but in her world of isolation and shame, even small kindnesses felt like miracles. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, unaware that her life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, offered by those who see worth where others see only failure. The human maintenance worker's name was June, though Hana did not learn this until their 3rd encounter. He worked the night shift, maintaining the environmental systems that kept Kepler Station's atmosphere breathable for dozens of different species. While most of the station slept, he walked the corridors with his toolbox, checking air filters, monitoring temperature controls, and fixing whatever broke during the day. It was during one of these late-night rounds that June first noticed something was wrong in the waste management sector. Processor 7, the same machine Hana had been working on earlier, was making strange noises and flashing warning lights. The temperature readings showed dangerous levels that could contaminate the entire sector if the machine failed completely. Hana was still there, working frantically to fix the problem. Her crystalline skin was pale with exhaustion and stress. She had been trying to repair the processor for 6 hours, but every solution she attempted only made things worse. The machine was old and temperamental, and her earlier repairs had only temporarily stopped its problems. The backup systems are failing too, she muttered to herself, checking readings on her tablet. If this spreads to the main waste treatment center, it could poison half the station. She was so focused on the crisis that she did not notice June approaching until he spoke. "Looks like you could use some help," he said, setting down his toolbox. Hana looked up in surprise. The human worker from the corridor was standing beside her, rolling up his sleeves as if he planned to get involved. His expression was calm and professional, showing no sign of the disgust or pity she expected. "I don't need help," she said quickly, her voice sharper than she intended. "Especially not from someone who doesn't understand xenobiology systems." June raised an eyebrow but did not seem offended. "Maybe not, but I do understand mechanical systems, and that processor has been causing problems for months. Sometimes a fresh perspective helps." "This isn't your responsibility," Hana continued, turning back to her work. "If something goes wrong, you'll get blamed too. Trust me, being associated with me isn't good for anyone's career." Instead of leaving, June knelt down beside the processor and opened an access panel. "Well, my career isn't exactly impressive to begin with. I'm just a maintenance worker, but I've fixed a lot of broken things in my time." He began examining the internal components with practiced eyes. Hana watched him work, expecting him to give up when he realized how complex the system was. But June seemed to understand the machine better than she expected. "The problem isn't with your biological filters," he said after a few minutes. "It's with the power regulation system. See this coupling here? It's been overheating because the cooling system can't keep up with demand." Hana looked where he was pointing. She had been so focused on the biological aspects of the processor that she had not considered the basic mechanical systems. "But the power readings are normal," she protested. "Normal average, yes, but look at the fluctuation patterns." June showed her his scanner readings. "The power spikes every few minutes, then drops back down. That's what's causing your biological systems to fail." For the first time in months, Hana felt a spark of intellectual curiosity. June was right. The power fluctuations were subtle, but they explained everything that had gone wrong with her repairs. "So if we stabilize the power flow," she said, thinking aloud, "the biological systems should function normally." "Exactly. But we need to reroute the cooling system first, or it'll just overheat again." They worked together for the next 2 hours, combining Hana's knowledge of biological systems with June's understanding of mechanical engineering. It was not easy work. They had to crawl into tight spaces, disconnect dozens of components, and rebuild entire sections of the processor. But something remarkable happened as they worked. For the first time since her disgrace, Hana felt useful again. June treated her like a competent colleague, asking for her input and listening to her suggestions. He did not act like she was damaged goods or a dangerous failure. To him, she was simply another engineer trying to solve a problem. "Hand me that molecular wrench," June said, reaching for a component deep inside the machine. "The blue one or the silver one?" Hana asked. "Blue. And can you check the biological readings while I tighten this connection?" She ran the scans, feeling her excitement grow as the numbers improved. "Power fluctuations are down 60%. Biological contamination dropping to safe levels. Good. Almost got it." There was a soft click as the final connection locked into place. "Try running a full diagnostic now." Hana activated the test sequence, holding her breath as data flowed across her tablet. Green lights began appearing across the processor's status board. Temperature normal. Power stable. Biological systems functioning perfectly. "It's working," she said, hardly believing it. "It's actually working." June climbed out from under the machine, wiping grease from his hands with a cloth. He was smiling, the kind of genuine smile that came from solving a difficult problem. Not bad for a lost cause, right? Hana froze. Those words, lost cause, had been whispered about her for months, but the way June said them was different. There was no mockery, no judgment. It was almost like he was acknowledging what others said about her while suggesting they might be wrong. "How did you know they call me that?" she asked quietly. June's smile faded slightly. "Word gets around on a station this size, people talk, but I've learned not to trust everything I hear, especially when it comes to judging people." "Maybe this time they're right," Hana said, looking down at her hands. "Maybe I am a lost cause. You saw what I did to those Kellians." "I saw what happened during an experiment that went wrong," June corrected. "That's not the same thing as who you are as a person." "How can you say that? You don't even know me." "I know you've been working on that processor for 6 hours straight to prevent it from poisoning innocent people. I know you understood my mechanical solutions instantly and improved on them. I know you care more about getting things right than about getting credit." He packed his tools back into his box. "That doesn't sound like a lost cause to me." Hana stared at him, not knowing what to say. Nobody had spoken to her with such simple acceptance in months. Her fellow Vorthans saw her as an emotional failure. The other species saw her as dangerous. But this human worker saw her as just another person trying to do her job well. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Associating with me could damage your reputation." June laughed, a warm sound that echoed in the mostly empty sector. "My reputation? I'm a night shift maintenance worker. I don't exactly move in high social circles. Still, people will talk. Let them talk. I'd rather judge people by their actions than by gossip." He headed toward the door, then paused. "Same time tomorrow night? That backup cooling system is going to need some adjustments if we want this fix to be permanent. You want to help me again? We make a good team. Your biological expertise, my mechanical knowledge. Besides, this station has a lot of old equipment that could use some attention." After he left, Hana stood alone in the humming machinery room. The processor was working perfectly, its status lights glowing steady green. But more importantly, for the first time in months she had remembered what it felt like to be part of a team, to have someone trust her knowledge and respect her abilities. She touched one of the panels they had repaired together. Tomorrow night, June would return, and they would work on the cooling system. He had not asked about her past mistakes or demanded proof that she had learned her lesson. He simply saw a problem that needed solving and a colleague who could help solve it. Maybe, just maybe, she was not as lost as everyone believed. Walking back to her quarters, Hana noticed that her reflection in the corridor windows looked different. Her skin had a slight shimmer and her eyes seemed brighter. The patterns on her forehead had not returned yet, but for the first time in months she felt like they might someday. She had no way of knowing that this simple act of mechanical cooperation would change not only her life, but the entire culture of Kepler Station. Sometimes the most profound transformations begin with two people working together to fix a broken machine in the middle of the night. True to his word, June returned the next night with coffee from the human quarters and a detailed plan for upgrading the cooling system. The coffee was a revelation to Hana, who had never tasted anything like it. Most species in the galaxy preferred bland, nutritionally balanced beverages. But human coffee was bold, complex, and energizing in ways that went beyond simple caffeine. "This is against station regulations," she said, accepting the steaming cup gratefully. "Sharing food between species without proper dietary analysis." "A lot of good things are against regulations," June replied, settling down beside Processor 7 with his own cup. "Besides, I checked. Coffee is safe for Vorthans. Your people actually process caffeine better than humans do." They worked steadily through the night, installing new cooling coils and upgrading the power distribution system. Their conversation started with technical details, but gradually became more personal. June asked about Vorthan culture, genuinely curious about her people's emphasis on emotional control and intellectual achievement. "We believe that feelings cloud judgment," Hana explained, carefully aligning a cooling coil. A true Vorthan makes decisions based on logic and evidence, not on personal desires or emotions. That sounds lonely, June said thoughtfully. What happens when logic isn't enough? When you need to make a choice based on hope or compassion? Then you probably make the wrong choice, Hana replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Her own passionate desire to help the Kellians had led to disaster after all. June was quiet for a moment, focusing on connecting power cables. You know, humans have a different philosophy. We think emotions and logic work better together. Like this repair we're doing. The logical part is understanding how the machines work, but the emotional part is caring enough to fix them properly. Caring led to my downfall, Hana said bitterly. If I had been more detached, more clinical, those Kellians would still be healthy. Maybe. Or maybe someone more detached would never have tried to help them in the first place. Over the following weeks, their late-night repair sessions became a regular routine. June would arrive with coffee and whatever technical problem he had discovered during his rounds. Hana would bring her analytical skills and growing understanding of the station's interconnected systems. The work was challenging and varied. One night they fixed atmospheric processors in the Kellian quarters, where the heavy gravity species needed denser air mixtures. Another night they solved mysterious energy fluctuations in the research labs, tracking down electromagnetic interference from an improperly shielded experimental device. But the real breakthrough came when June began, sharing stories from human history, tales of scientists whose early failures led to revolutionary discoveries, leaders who found strength through adversity, inventors who succeeded only after dozens of failed attempts. There was this human scientist named Thomas Edison, June said, one night as they worked on ventilation systems. He tried over 1,000 different materials before he found one that worked for electric lights. When someone asked him about failing so many times, he said he hadn't failed. He had just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. That's a very human way of thinking, Hana observed. Vorthans would see 1,000 failures as proof of fundamental incompetence. Maybe that's why humans keep trying impossible things. We're too stupid to know when to give up. Hana found herself laughing, a sound she had not made in months. It's not stupidity. It's optimism. Your species believes in second chances, third chances, fourth chances. We believe people can change and grow and become better than they were. These conversations began to shift something fundamental in Hana's thinking. The Vorthon view of her situation was that she had revealed a fatal character flaw and should accept permanent disgrace. But the human perspective suggested that her mistake was a learning experience that could make her a better scientist. You really think I could do meaningful research again? She asked one night as they shared coffee in the empty cafeteria. I think you never stop doing meaningful research, June replied. You've solved more technical problems in the past month than most of the day shift engineers manage in a year. The only difference is that now you're being more careful and thorough. But those were just maintenance issues. So what, you kept the atmospheric processors running for the Kellian quarters. You solved the electromagnetic interference that was disrupting 3 different research projects. You prevented a contamination leak that could have poisoned half the station. He counted off on his fingers. How is that less important than laboratory work? For the first time, Hana began to see her current work differently. She had been viewing it as punishment, a waste of her talents. But June was right. The problems she solved affected real people's daily lives. Her careful, methodical approach prevented disasters and kept the station running smoothly. I never thought of it that way, she admitted. That's because you were taught to value theoretical research over practical application. But both matter. The galaxy needs people who can dream up new possibilities, and it needs people who can make those possibilities work in the real world. As their friendship deepened, other humans on the station began to notice. Unlike the other species who whispered disapprovingly about June's association with the disgraced Vorthon, the human workers seemed curious and supportive. Bora, a human, engineer from the communications department, approached them one night with a signal degradation problem she couldn't solve. June says you're good with complex systems, she told Hana directly. Could you take a look at this? It was the first time since her disgrace that someone had asked for her expertise, without going through proper channels or supervisors. Hana felt a mix of nervousness and excitement as she examined Bora's data. The problem was subtle. Signal strength was dropping by tiny amounts across multiple relay stations, but the pattern didn't match any standard degradation model. After an hour of analysis, Hana identified the cause: microscopic contamination in the relay crystals, probably from a recent solar storm. The contamination is too small to show up on standard scans, she explained, but it's creating interference at specific frequencies. If you recalibrate the crystals to compensate, the signal strength should return to normal. Bora implemented the solution immediately, and it worked perfectly. Amazing, she said, grinning at both Hana and June. No wonder the day shift couldn't figure it out. They were looking at the problem completely wrong. Word of Hana's success spread quietly through the human community. Soon, other human workers were bringing their technical problems to the late-night maintenance sessions. Kyung from the Environmental Systems Department needed help with air purification calculations. Daeho from the power generation team couldn't understand why energy output kept fluctuating randomly. Each problem Hana solved reinforced her growing confidence. But more importantly, these small acts of trust from the human workers began to restore her faith in her own abilities. They didn't care about her past mistakes. They only cared that she could help them solve problems that were affecting their work. The non-human staff watched these developments with bewilderment. To most species, Hana was permanently tainted by her failure. The idea that she could rehabilitate herself through good work was foreign to their thinking. But the humans seemed to operate by different social rules, ones that allowed for redemption and gradual rebuilding of trust. It's very strange behavior, Dr. Minho commented to his assistant one day as they watched Hana working on an atmospheric processor with two human engineers. They're treating her like she's still competent. Maybe humans just don't understand the severity of her crimes, the assistant suggested. But Hana was beginning to understand that the humans understood perfectly. They simply chose to focus on her potential rather than her past. They saw her current careful, methodical work as evidence that she had learned from her mistakes, not proof that she was irredeemably damaged. Late one night, as she and June finished upgrading the backup life support systems, Hana realized something had changed. The patterns on her forehead, the ones that appeared when Vortons were intellectually excited, had begun to shimmer faintly as she worked on complex problems. "You're glowing," June observed with a smile. Hana touched her forehead in surprise. She hadn't felt the patterns forming, but they were definitely there. "I haven't done that since before the incident." "It suits you. You look like yourself again." "Who am I now?" she asked, genuinely curious about his answer. "You're a scientist who cares about getting things right. You're someone who uses her talents to help others and make the world a better place. You're also someone who learned that being careful is just as important as being brilliant. And the mistake I made? It's part of your story, but it's not the end of your story." As they cleaned up their tools and prepared to end another successful night of repairs, Hana felt something she had not experienced in months: hope for the future. The human workers had shown her that redemption was possible through actions rather than just words. They had given her a chance to prove that her mistake did not define her entire worth as a person. She had no way of knowing that their quiet collaboration was about to be put to the ultimate test, or that her chance at redemption would come in the form of a crisis that threat. What started as informal late-night repairs gradually evolved into something more organized. June began keeping detailed records of every problem Hana solved, documenting her methods and results in his maintenance logs. He created technical reports that showed her innovative solutions and careful attention to safety protocols. "Why are you doing this?" Hana asked one night, watching him input data into his tablet after they had successfully repaired a malfunctioning water recycling system. "Because good work deserves to be recognized," June replied simply. "And because someone needs to keep track of all the ways you're helping this station function." But Hana suspected there was more to it than that. June was building a record of her rehabilitation, creating evidence that she had learned from her mistakes and become a more careful, methodical scientist. It was a distinctly human approach to redemption, focused on gradual proof rather than dramatic gestures. The underground network of human workers seeking Hana's help continued to grow. They brought increasingly complex problems that the official maintenance teams couldn't solve. A quantum resonance issue in the research labs that was interfering with delicate experiments. A mysterious power drain that was affecting life support in the outer sections. Communication blackouts that happened at irregular intervals. Each challenge required Hana to combine her theoretical knowledge with practical problem-solving skills. But more importantly, each success rebuilt her confidence and reminded her why she had become a scientist in the first place. She wanted to help people solve problems and improve their lives. Bora brought her most difficult case on a quiet Tuesday night. The communication array is picking up strange signals, she explained, showing Hana recordings of electromagnetic noise. It's not natural background radiation and it's not coming from any known sources, but it's interfering with our deep space communications. Hana studied the signal patterns for hours, running mathematical analyses and comparing the data to known phenomena. The breakthrough came when she realized the signals were actually echoes from the station's own transmissions, bounced back by an unusual atmospheric condition around the gas giant terminus. The planet's magnetic field has shifted slightly, she explained to Bora and June. It's creating a reflection layer that bounces our signals back at us with a 3-hour delay. If we adjust the transmission frequency to compensate for the magnetic field changes, the interference should stop. The solution worked perfectly, restoring clear communication with the outer colonies. But more importantly, it demonstrated Hana's ability to identify problems that other scientists had missed entirely. How did you figure that out? Bora asked, amazed. The communications department has been working on this for weeks. Different perspective, Hana said modestly. Sometimes being outside the official system lets you see patterns that others miss. Word of her success began to spread beyond the human community. Other species started to notice that technical problems were being solved during night shifts, often in ways that were more elegant and effective than traditional approaches. They didn't connect these improvements to Hana directly, but they began to wonder who was responsible for the station's improved efficiency. Dr. Yuna, the station's chief administrator, called a meeting of department heads to discuss the mysterious improvements. Somebody is doing excellent work, she announced to the assembled scientists and engineers. Power efficiency is up 12%. Communication reliability has improved dramatically. Equipment failures are down across all sectors. Perhaps our regular maintenance staff is finally learning proper procedures, suggested Dr. Minho, the Vorthon researcher who had been most critical of Hana's disgrace. The improvements are too systematic for random learning, Dr. Yuna replied, studying her reports. Someone with advanced technical knowledge is making carefully planned upgrades throughout the station. I want to know who. Meanwhile, June expanded his network of human collaborators. Kyung from Environmental Systems began bringing atmospheric problems that required biological expertise. Daiho from Power Generation needed help understanding how different species' energy needs affected load distribution. Even Sana from the cafeteria asked for help optimizing food preservation systems for different alien biologies. Each new collaborator was briefed on the informal nature of their arrangement. They were helping a colleague who was working to rebuild her reputation through careful, excellent work. They understood that this was a long-term project focused on demonstrating competence and rehabilitation, rather than seeking immediate recognition. The human workers showed a remarkable ability to keep secrets while supporting each other. It was a cultural trait that other species found difficult to understand. Vorthons would have demanded formal procedures and official approval. Kellians would have insisted on clear lines of authority. But humans seemed comfortable with informal networks based on trust and mutual support. Your people are very good at working around official systems, Hana observed to June one night as they installed upgraded sensors in the waste management sector. We've had lots of practice, June replied with a grin. Humans have always been better at making things work than at following rules perfectly. Isn't that inefficient? All this informal coordination and unofficial problem solving? Sometimes. But it's also flexible. When official systems fail, human networks keep working. We adapt quickly because we don't wait for permission to help each other. This flexibility proved crucial when larger problems began emerging. The station's aging infrastructure was starting to show serious wear. Official maintenance teams were overwhelmed trying to keep up with routine repairs, leaving no time for the kind of systematic upgrades that Hana and her human colleagues were providing. One night, while working on atmospheric processors in the research section, they discovered something alarming. The primary life support backup system had multiple component failures that could cause catastrophic problems if the main system ever went offline. "This is beyond what we can fix during night maintenance," June said, examining the damaged components. "This needs official attention and major replacement parts. But if we report it through normal channels, they'll ask how we discovered the problem," Hana pointed out. "That could expose everything we've been doing. And if we don't report it, people could die if the main system fails," Bora added. They faced a difficult choice. Maintaining their secret collaboration meant risking lives, but revealing their work meant exposing Hana to possible punishment for working on systems outside her authorization. "I'll take responsibility," Hana said quietly. "I'll report the problem and accept whatever consequences come from admitting I was working in unauthorized areas." "No," June said firmly. "We're a team. If there are consequences, we face them together. Your careers could be damaged, your reputations ruined." "Our reputations aren't worth people's lives," Kyung said simply. "And anyway, anyone who would punish us for preventing disasters isn't someone whose opinion matters." The next morning, June submitted a comprehensive report about the backup system failures, including detailed documentation of how they had been discovered during extended maintenance inspections. He didn't hide Hana's involvement, but he presented it as part of a systematic review of station infrastructure that had identified numerous potential problems. Dr. Yuna reviewed the report with growing amazement. The inspection had been incredibly thorough, identifying issues that her official teams had completely missed. The recommendations were detailed, practical, and clearly the work of someone with exceptional technical knowledge. "Who conducted this inspection?" she asked June during his meeting. "A team effort," June replied carefully. "Several of us have been working together during night shifts to check systems that don't get regular attention. This level of analysis requires advanced scientific training. Which of your team members has xenobiology expertise?" June took a deep breath. "Dr. Hana has been providing technical consultation on biological systems integration." "Dr. Hana?" "Doctor." Yuna's eyebrows rose. "The former researcher who was reassigned to waste management?" "Yes, ma'am. Her expertise has been invaluable for understanding how different species' needs affect station systems." Dr. Yuna was quiet for a long moment, studying the report again. The work was undeniably excellent, showing the kind of careful attention to safety and systematic thinking that the station desperately needed. "I'll need to speak with Dr. Hana directly," she said finally. "This afternoon in my office." As word spread that Hana's involvement in the infrastructure improvements had been discovered, the human workers rallied around their colleague. They prepared detailed testimonies about her contributions, documented every problem she had solved, and organized their evidence to show the positive impact of her work. "Whatever happens," June told her before her meeting with Dr. Yuna, "you've already proven that you're not a lost cause. You've proven that you learned from your mistakes and became an even better scientist because of them." Walking toward the administrator's office, Hana felt nervous but not defeated. For the first time since her disgrace, she had evidence of good work and the support of colleagues who believed in her abilities. The human conspiracy of compassion had given her something precious, a second chance to prove her worth through ACT. The solar flare warning came at 2:47 p.m., just as Hana was walking toward Dr. Yuna's office for their scheduled meeting. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout Kepler Station, and the familiar voice of the automated system filled the corridors. "All personnel report to designated emergency stations. Class 5 solar event approaching. Estimated time to impact, 4 hours and 37 minutes. Hana stopped in the hallway, her blood running cold. Class 5 solar events were rare, but devastating, capable of overwhelming even military-grade radiation shielding. She had studied them during her research days, learning about the cellular damage they could cause to different species. Other station personnel hurried past her, toward their emergency assignments, but Hana wasn't sure where she should go. As someone assigned to waste management, she wasn't part of any critical emergency team. She stood frozen in the corridor, listening to the chaos building around her. "Dr. Hana," June's voice called from behind her. He was running toward her, his face grim with worry. The primary shielding array took damage from the first wave of particles. They're trying to evacuate non-essential personnel, but the transport ships can't handle everyone. "How bad is the damage?" she asked, her scientific mind automatically focusing on the technical aspects of the crisis. "Bad. 3 generator stations are offline and the backup systems are failing. Dr. Yuna has every available scientist working on solutions, but nothing's working. The conventional repair approaches need too much time." They reached the main research center, where dozens of scientists and engineers were working frantically at computer terminals. The central display showed a schematic of the station's shielding system, with red warning indicators covering most of the critical components. Dr. Yuna stood at the center of the activity, coordinating multiple repair teams through her communications headset. Her normally calm demeanor showed cracks of stress as she received one disappointing report after another. "Shield Generator 7 is completely burned out," reported Dr. Minho. "We can't restore it without replacement parts we don't have. Backup power to the secondary array is at 30% and dropping," added another scientist. "At current rates, we'll lose protection in the research sectors within 2 hours." "What about evacuation progress?" Dr. Yuna asked. "The transport ships can take maybe 60% of the station population. The rest will have to shelter in the most protected areas and hope for the best." Hana listened to the reports with growing alarm. The station housed over 2,000 people from dozens of different species. Many of them were researchers working on projects that could benefit billions of lives throughout the galaxy. If the shielding failed completely, the radiation would cause permanent damage to everyone who couldn't evacuate. Worse, many of the experimental samples and research data couldn't be transported safely. Decades of critical work would be lost if the station had to be abandoned. "June," she said quietly, "I need to see the technical specifications for the shielding array." "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" he asked. "Maybe. I have an idea, but I need to understand the system better." June led her to one of the peripheral workstations, where he pulled up detailed schematics of the station's radiation protection systems. Hana studied them intently, her mind racing through possibilities. The conventional approach to radiation shielding was static. Dense materials absorbed dangerous particles, protecting everything behind them. But static shields could be overwhelmed by intense events like Class 5 solar flares. Once the shielding materials became saturated with radiation, they stopped working effectively. But what if the shielding could be dynamic instead of static? What if it could actively respond to changing radiation levels, adjusting its protection based on real-time conditions? "This is crazy," she muttered to herself, running calculations in her head. "But it might work." "What might work?" June asked. "Bioadaptive shielding. Instead of trying to block radiation passively, we could create a field that actively neutralizes dangerous particles, like an immune system for the station." "Is that even possible?" "Theoretically, yes. I'd need to modify the existing shield generators to emit counter-frequencies that cancel out specific types of radiation, but the frequencies would need to change constantly as the solar flare intensity varies." She began sketching diagrams on the workstation tablet, her mind fully engaged with the problem for the first time in months. The solution required combining her knowledge of biological systems with advanced physics and engineering principles. "The tricky part is creating a control system that can adjust frequencies fast enough," she continued, her voice gaining confidence. "It would need to analyze incoming radiation in real time and compute optimal counter-frequencies within microseconds." June watched her work with growing excitement. This was the brilliant scientist he had always believed Hana could become again. Her approach was innovative, creative, and exactly the kind of thinking that could save thousands of lives. How long would it take to implement, he asked, if we modified the existing generators instead of trying to repair them conventionally? Maybe 3 hours, but I'd need access to the primary control systems, and I'd need help from engineers who understand the hardware. You'd also need official authorization to work on critical systems. Hana looked around the research center where the best scientists in the galaxy were struggling with conventional solutions that weren't working. Her idea was radical and untested, but it might be their only hope. I have to try, she said, standing up from the workstation. Even if they reject the idea, I have to offer it. I'll come with you, June said immediately. This could make things worse for you. Association with me is already risky for your career. My career doesn't matter if everyone on this station dies from radiation poisoning. They approached Dr. Yuna, who was in the middle of coordinating another failed repair attempt. When she saw them, her expression shifted from stress to confusion. Dr. Hana, I thought you were waiting in my office for our meeting. Dr. Yuna, I have a possible solution to the shielding problem, Hana said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. It's unconventional, but it might work when traditional approaches can't. A solution? Dr. Yuna's eyebrows rose. You're not authorized to work on critical systems. I know, but I've been studying the problem, and I think there's a way to create adaptive radiation shielding that can handle the intensity of a Class 5 solar event. Dr. Minho, who had been working at a nearby terminal, looked up at Hana's words. Adaptive shielding? That's theoretical at best. This isn't the time for experimental fantasies. What exactly are you proposing? Dr. Yuna asked, ignoring Dr. Minho's dismissal. Hana took a deep. The morning sun shone through the tall windows of the Human Valorian Medical Institute. Nari stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces from dozens of different species. Today was her graduation day. 2 years ago, she had been a dying patient with no hope. Now she was about to become the first interspecies certified physician in galactic history. Her crystal-like skin had regained its natural blue glow. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence and determination. The neural plague that once destroyed, her mind was now just a memory. She wore the white coat of a doctor with pride, knowing that her journey from patient to healer would inspire countless others. In the front row sat Hyun-Woo Park, the human doctor who had saved her life. His hair had more gray now, but his smile was as warm as ever. Next to him was Dr. So-Young Kim, who had helped rebuild Nari's mind piece by piece. Both humans had become more than her doctors. They were her friends, her teachers, and her heroes. Dr. Kale, the Valorian physician who had once called her a lost cause, now served as the Institute's co-director. He had learned to combine his species' advanced technology with human compassion. The change in him was remarkable. Where once he had been cold and distant, he now spent hours talking with patients and their families. Nari began her speech with steady confidence. 2 years ago, I lay in a hospital bed, barely alive. My own people had given up on me. The best doctors in the galaxy said I would never wake up. They called me a lost cause. She paused, looking directly at Hyun-Woo. Then, a human doctor looked at my case files. He saw something different. Where others saw death, he saw possibility. Where others saw failure, he saw a challenge. He took my hand and promised never to let go. The audience listened in complete silence. Many of them knew Nari's story, but hearing it from her own voice made it more powerful. Today I stand before you as proof that no one should ever be written off. No patient should be abandoned. No case should be called hopeless without trying every possible treatment. Her voice grew stronger with each word. The treatment protocol that saved Nari had now helped over 500 patients across 20 different species. The success rate was incredible. Diseases that had been considered fatal for thousands of years were now treatable. The combination of human determination and alien technology was changing medicine forever. Nari continued her speech. I learned that healing requires more than just advanced machines and powerful medicines. It needs something that humans understand better than any other species. It needs heart. It needs hope. It needs the belief that every life is worth fighting for. In the audience, delegates from major galactic powers nodded in agreement. The human medical breakthrough had improved relations between Earth and dozens of other worlds. Trade agreements, technology sharing, and cultural exchanges had followed. Humanity was no longer seen as primitive newcomers. They were respected, partners in galactic civilization. The Human Valorian Medical Institute had become the most sought-after medical school in the galaxy. Students from hundreds of species applied each year. They came to learn the human approach to medicine, which emphasized the connection between doctor and patient. After the graduation ceremony, Nari walked through the hospital corridors where she had once been a patient. The rooms that had once seemed cold and sterile now buzzed with warmth and activity. Human doctors worked alongside alien physicians, sharing knowledge and techniques. She stopped at the neural plague ward where 12 new patients were receiving treatment. Unlike her experience, these patients were surrounded by family members and friends. The isolation protocols had been replaced with support systems. Visitors were encouraged, not banned. One patient, a young thoraxian named Vec, had been admitted 3 weeks earlier. His family had been told he would never recover, but Nari could see the spark of awareness in his eyes that she recognized from her own experience. She sat beside his bed and took his hand. "I know you can hear me," she said softly. "I know it seems dark and scary right now, but you are not alone. We will not give up on you. I promise." Dr. Hyunwoo joined her at the bedside. His dedication to impossible cases had never wavered. Even with his promotion to director, he still spent time with individual patients. "How is he doing?" he asked. "Better than yesterday," Nari replied. "His brain patterns show more activity. I think he will surprise everyone just like I did." Hyunwoo smiled. "You taught us all something important, Nari. You showed us that miracles happen when we refuse to stop trying." The success of Nari's case had inspired a new generation of medical professionals. Young humans were choosing careers in galactic medicine, eager to make a difference. Alien doctors were studying human techniques, learning to see patients as individuals rather than just cases. Not everyone welcomed these changes. Some conservative medical establishments resisted human methods. They argued that emotional involvement with patients was unprofessional and dangerous. But the results spoke for themselves. Hospitals using human techniques had better patient outcomes, faster recovery times, and higher satisfaction ratings. Nari had become the spokesperson for this new approach to medicine. She traveled across the galaxy, speaking at medical conferences and training new doctors. Her message was always the same: never give up, never stop caring, never call anyone a lost cause. As evening approached, Nari returned to her office in the institute. The walls were covered with messages from patients she had helped and doctors she had trained. Each one was a reminder of how far they had all come. She picked up a data pad containing her latest research. She was working on treatments for genetic disorders that affected multiple species. Her approach combined human persistence with Valorian precision and Thoraxian innovation. It was the future of galactic medicine. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. A young human medical student entered, looking nervous and excited. "Dr. Nari, I wanted to thank you for accepting me into your research program." Nari smiled warmly. "What is your name?" "I am called Jin Ho," the student replied. "I came from Earth after hearing about your work. I want to help other hopeless cases, just like Dr. Hyunwoo helped you." "There are no hopeless cases," Nari corrected gently. "There are only cases that need more time, more creativity, and more care. Remember that, and you will save many lives." As Jin Ho left, Nari looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there were patients who had been told they could not be cured, families who had been told to give up hope. But now they had options they never had before. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from a dying Valorian and a stubborn human doctor. They learned that the most powerful medicine was not the most advanced technology. It was the simple refusal to abandon another living being. Nari touched the small pendant around her neck, a gift from Hyunwoo when she first woke up. It was a symbol of hope from Earth, reminding her that darkness always gave way to dawn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patience, and new opportunities to prove that no one was ever truly lost. And Nari would face them all with the same determination that had once saved her own life. The human who took her hand had changed everything. Now it was her turn to take the hands of others and lead them back to the light.